That's what makes
All
this
right,
the most
everybody.
authentic podcast out there, because this is who we are. We are unprepared, but very frothy.
I mean, I'm super prepared. I'm sitting in a studio.
That is true. I have a studio. I'm in an office. We'll call it a studio for now.
All right.
I've got my sweet mic stand here.
It's pretty profesh. I mean, at least you got a mic. It's pretty good.
I know, slow and steady. I'll have my own studio one day.
Yeah.
Once I stop moving so much.
Yeah. So, welcome to the X-Foils podcast, everyone. It's just Walt and I. And we wanted to do a little short as we can.
It's only an hour and a half or so.
Just,
you know,
4 hours of us talking about safety.
Yeah, no, this will be just a quick one, but we've been talking about it a lot, and we had somebody, one of the windsurfers, unfortunately passed away recently and drowned on the river. And not to say this stuff doesn't happen in everybody's communities all the time, but it reminds us that, the water is a very, we're not supposed to be there. Humans, we're not supposed to be in this liquid environment. Our lungs don't work underwater. And I think sometimes as we get really comfortable with these sports and our skills and comfortable being in the water, it's easy sometimes to kind of forget about the apparent dangers. And, there's some easy things I think we can all be doing. And then there's a big range of what safety look like and what you want your safety protocols to be. But I figured it'd be good for Dylan and I to kind of chat about, what are some of the PFDs and the options out there and things we think we can do to kind of make our sport safer without really impeding on the experience. Because I think that's kind of the drawback a lot of times for safety is it feels like, I put on that helmet, I look stupid and it makes me feel weird. I'm not used to it, or I wear a PFD or whatever it is, right?
Well, what can we recommend, or what are we actually going to do?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right? Like what do we do? So you're saying this guy in Rufus blowing 40 got separated from his windsurf gear, probably didn't have a PFD. So what would I do different? Then I was thinking what's running through my head is like, oh, well, I've got a leash on my board, like little coil leash, and I've had them snap before. What if it snapped? What if I'm out there in the river, but I'm in the river, I'm a waterman, but all of those things could go out the window very quickly, I mean, you could get hit by your foot. I mean, there's so many like, that's why it's tough to talk about safety. You're like, oh, wow, this happened. And you're like, wow, it happened so fast. That's not going to happen to me. Right? Like, oh, I'm fine out there. I'm in the river or whatever, you know? So I guess what are the things that you could do to help mitigate all of that? Yeah,
well, I mean, the other day, right, like I talked about it on a previous podcast, I had 5 stitches in my foot from a cut on the back edge of the mast or the tail on the stabilizer. I'm not really sure. But I mean, that triggered me to go, well, I've been meaning to order that tourniquet for a long time and carry it with me. I should have something, because it's not just me. What if somebody else gets cut? I mean, we're flying around on very sharp objects that no matter how good you are at avoiding them and controlling your falls, I mean, if you're pushing your limits, you're going to fall. And when you do, sometimes, especially when it's blowing 40, it can be kind of chaotic. I know yesterday I took one fall, and immediately when I hit the water, I think from, being in the waves a lot and just recognizing that I fell in front of my board, I dove down as deep as I could because I was concerned that the board was behind me and I'm in 40-mile-an-hour winds, so that board's potentially going to get blown forward. And sure enough, it did land in the water. It kind of hit me in the shoulder a little bit, but luckily I dove down far enough that, it barely bumped me. But if I was on the surface, that could have been an issue. So not wearing a bump cap, not wearing a helmet, right? Don't have a PFD with me and didn't have a tourniquet. So I quickly was like, man, I should probably be doing some of these, especially as the conditions ramp up and you're going out in more chaotic conditions. We should be more prepared.
But yeah, I know. But also, it's not that we want to be ill prepared, but we're already trying to rush ourselves into a van, right? This downwinding scene, when I roll up to the spot here in Puerto Rico, it's already overwhelming about what I've got to take with me. Do I have all my hardware? Do I have the foil that I need? Do I have the parawing that I need? Then do I have my phone and a waterproof backpack? Do I put sun cream on? And I feel like, I've already got all these things that I've got to worry about, which is not a lot, right? So I think if you come prepared already with that mindset and it's just part of your system, then it gets easier and easier. Putting on a helmet is, at the beginning, for a while I was wearing that full helmet from Mystic for a while. In Puerto Rico, it's just too hot. I was dying. and it's heavy on your head. Like it started hurting my neck. Proning with it hurt my neck, right? So I stopped using it. Then I stopped wearing a bump cap. Then I don't wear a PDF. I used to, but then you get comfortable. You do 20 runs. I'm like 2 miles offshore. You're talking about the river and the gorge. I'm talking about being offshore in Puerto Rico, Hawaii. Like, we're not a great example here, Walt.
No, and I think we should be better. And I think that's why I want to talk about this. And I think also illuminating the fact that we're not good about it. And we represent probably a pretty big portion of foilers is that, we are probably slightly unprepared. We're coming from a surfing background or places where, you don't want to feel encumbered by those things. And, I look back at my climbing career and I was the same way in climbing. I should have been wearing a helmet when I wasn't. I should have been doing things I wasn't. Not said I was a very safe. And I think there's a difference between being a safe person and being aware of your environment and your equipment and making good decisions, right? There's that. Then there's being prepared with all of the safety equipment that it takes in case something goes really wrong. And I think that's where it's easy to make the mistake. I think that you're very good about thinking about safety. How am I going to get in? How am I going to get out? Not putting yourself in a position where you feel like you're out of control. But at the same time, getting hit in the head by your board or your foil and getting knocked unconscious. Well, that's something that I don't care what you got on, unless you have a full PFD, you're in big trouble, right?
Yeah.
Because there's full PFDs, then there's like these little inflatable versions that's what we carry typically when we're out in the ocean. I always have the rest tube, the little tiny pack I throw on the bottom of my Camelback. That's kind of like, I think, the lowest end, personal flotation. Too. Yeah. No, you don't wear that anymore? Come on, bro. That one's not bad. That's like the size of an iPhone.
Yeah.
And then there's the waist inflatable one that's like a full waist
That one's
clip.
pretty cool. That cool.
I think is the way. And I think it's the way for a few reasons. I watch Trey Hendricks, Magneto, whatever, on Instagram. He's Walker's father. And he always rocks. He's got one of those. And then he's got his tourniquet stashed inside that. And I always thought that was like kind of a cool thing that like you had something that was a PFD, but you also had this little ability to pack a couple things in it that might be helpful if you ran into an issue in the water. So that to me seems like a pretty good fit. I used that a bunch maybe you can put the name of that product in the link. There's a few different versions of it. But it's basically just a waist PFD. But I was using that in Maui a bunch when I first started paddling. And it was really minimal. Like I didn't really feel it on my waist. It was very easy to use. You can use it to be an extension of a waist leash, right? So you can use that and connect your leash to it and use that as a leash to your board. And then as far as like the leash to your board, I think it's all important for all of us, especially in the ocean, to remember that is there's no backup for that system. That is a single system, right? So if that leash fails, you are disconnected from your board, and your board is most likely your main flotation device out there.
Gone. Yeah.
Right. So, I think we can become very lackadaisical with the products that we're using as far as the cord strength, and what that leash line looks like, where it attaches to the board and your leash plug. Obviously a failure of the leash plug, that comes down to an equipment failure, and that's going to come from the manufacturer. But we can control, did we put like a little piece of shit shoelace or some random string that came from the factory that's like, I have no idea what the tension strength of this is. I always replace mine with Dyneema cord. You can order it on Amazon or whatever. Get like some 1/8 inch Dyneema. That stuff has like an insane strength rate. But if you just make that the strongest part of the system, at least you're not going to worry about that failing out there. And then from there, I think we can kind of look at leashes. I mean, we all are using those Keohi, the coil leashes. I mean, I've snapped a few of those over the winter. I'm using the Invisileash, but I got a weak link of that plastic that's not Dyneema.
Yeah. I'm using the Invisileash, and I don't know what the coil is. I think it's probably 6 mil. But when I'm using the double coil, I'm using an 8 mil, right, with the handle on it, right? Mm-hmm. It's got that handle, that rail saver on the back, which, I mean, the thicker it's got to be better, right?
I snapped 3 of them this winter, though. You know?
It's pretty intense, those waves, for sure.
But heavy waves, and it was with the foil drive, which is more weight too.
Well, let's go backwards and see like what's the most important. No, time's not up. This is definitely going over 15 minutes. We're at 10:19. No, we'll wrap real quick. right? I think number one, it's a buddy system. You know, like if you're out there with your friends,
I have to get friends now.
not a buddy system, but you know, I go out there and I session with the boys, and I know that if I don't come to the end of the run in a certain amount of time, they're worried. You know, we do share locations with each other. We share pins. We try to session together, but let's be honest, in the ocean, we're all just kind of wandering off on our own. The river, maybe it's easier to stay together. They're short runs. So you'd know very quickly that maybe Walt hasn't shown up in a long time, and give them a call or something. If you see that they're in trouble or their wing flew away, their board went away from them, I would say that, number one, I'm pretty aware of my surroundings and who's out there and who's with me. And that's always something that I've been very good at from the kiteboarding scene, from running schools. I'm always aware of who's out there, who's doing what, who's got what equipment, and who could be in potential danger or in an issue when something arises, right? So I think going out there and sessioning with a buddy, yeah, have a session, you know, be in your own world. But I think there's something to say for being aware of who's out there and what they're doing and where they end up, and, you know, to keep track of them.
I think when it comes to surf sessions and wing surfing or just wing foiling in general, the buddy system, I completely agree. It's easier to keep track of your friends when you're in the same wave field and stuff. A little harder on the downwind, but something you mentioned a few times is sharing locations, calling if they're missing. You can only do that if you bring a mobile device with you. If you own a foil, I'm pretty sure you fucking have a phone. Like, don't go out on a downwind and not have anything with you. Have an iWatch or have a phone in a plastic case. It's one of the most basic pieces of equipment that will allow you to navigate out of a shitty situation. And it's just such I think it gets overlooked a lot, especially by people who've been in water sports for a long time, because the last thing we thought about was bringing electronics with us out there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of those easy ones. It's like a layup, you know, it's $10 for a waterproof case, and it really does not impede your experience at all. And then we can track you, we can find you. And I'm sure all of us, you can name 5 experiences where your homie didn't have a phone and everybody was trying to figure out, was he okay? Did something happen? Or they had a really bad epic, which totally could have been avoided with a phone call, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's pretty important. And then down the list, what's more important, a helmet or a PDF, a life jacket,
I think PDF first.
Mm-hmm. Like 100%. Like, helmet's not going to help you if your board gets drifted away from you.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Drowning is a thing, right? Like that's probably the number one cause, right? So having a PFD, I think that's the thing that that and the tourniquet are the two I want to really add to my quiver of like safety and figure out a good way for me to integrate that. Cause I think there's no excuse. And even if it's not for me, right, it's for somebody else. What do you show up? Your buddy's got a deep laceration of femoral artery or something like that, bleeding out in the river. What do? Start trying to wrap him with your leash? And whereas like, dude, it's this big, you know, it's 10 inches and weighs nothing. Like I could have had the exact piece of medical equipment I needed to help that person in that moment. Same thing with PFD, right? Like having a flotation device, even if it's not for you, if it's for a rescue, it's a great thing to have. And you just never know what's going to happen out there, right? Gear failure happens all the time.
Yeah. So a lesser thing could be one of those inflatable rest tubes, or that other one that you said goes around your waist. That could be used to help somebody else. That could be used to help you. If you're knocked unconscious, not going to help you. Right. So I think, the Bicobi
vest that everybody uses for downwinding, I think is probably your best option, right? It's robust. I know it's all certified, right? It's Coast Guard certified and everything. It's got pockets. You can put all your gear in it. I own one. It is hanging in my garage. and not in my van like it probably should be, but I do have that waist PDF in there that I've been just staring at. I'm going to start using that thing. But I agree, this does not solve the issue of did I get knocked unconscious. If you do, you know, those are designed to flip you up ideally, right? The buoyancy is in the back over the front. Not that you can't get stuck on your face, like you can, but hey, you got a shot, right?
And if you're face down in the river without a PDF, maybe you'll float for a little bit. But who's going to see you?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like then, I mean, that's, even if you're it's not going to save your life, but at least you're floating. Somebody could help you. You've
With a
got
bright
more
orange,
flotation to you,
pink
bright
thing, yeah.
orange, pink, whatever. You know, I saw a color scheme thing the other day of like bathing suits, of like what bathing suits work in the pool and what bathing suits and colors work in a lake, and how visible you are. And it was pretty interesting, right? You're like wearing a brown, black bathing suit. No one's going to see you floating in the lake. You're wearing a light blue, you know, bathing suit or something in the
Or
pool.
white or whatever. Yeah,
like
exactly.
No one's going to see you. You could be at the bottom of the pool. No one's going to see you. Not that that's relevant, but anyway.
No, it is, because I was going to say, I think just as much as we're talking about PFD, another safety piece of equipment is, you know, bright colored articles of clothing, whether it's a helmet or a jacket. I mean, again, you know, do as I say, not as I do. Wearing a, you know, camouflage bucket hat and all black wetsuit, you know, in the water with no PFD.
Bright,
like, that's not ideal.
Bright colors. Right.
Yeah,
bright colors
and there is like
ideal.
the brightest, the neon pink from just our experience, the neon pink, the neon orange, clearly in the ocean, the two colors you can see from the furthest distance. Like you wear a neon yellowy green, great color. Love chartreuse, awesome color, but not very visible in the ocean. It's too light. It kind of blends with the skyline and stuff. And obviously anything white, you know, blue,
you just
green,
look like a white cap,
brown. Yeah, exactly. You can't tell what that is. You completely lose view. But man, you wear that bright pink. Again, it has to be fluorescent pink or orange, and you can just see that dot 2 miles offshore very clearly.
Yeah. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll put, because we just impromptu decided to do this thing, but I'll put it like
we have been planning this for months,
ages. I'm going to put like links of like different vests that I think are, you know, comparable, that are good, that could be useful. I mean, I've got the Mystic downwind flotation vest, which is really great. I have one. Don't wear it. Bright red, you know, so that's useful. But I'll put a couple
Monera
links
ones
to
are
it.
super cool too. And
I was trying to look at Monera because they have this offshore vest, which looks sick for downwinding.
A bunch of people use it here, and it's like, badass. And it's got the beacon on it.
But it's got no flotation. It's not a float vest. It's like, it's got pockets in it. It's got a whistle. It's got a beacon, but it's not a flotation vest.
Yeah, from what I understand, that beacon is required if you want to do anything offshore in Europe.
Okay, so that makes sense.
So that's where I think it comes in. But I mean, the fact that there's no flotation, but that idea of a small whatever. I don't know much about that tech they're using over there, but I assume it's just similar to the beacons you use here for open ocean crossings, or if you're in a sailboat, but just in some smaller version of that, right? That can ping a signal. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome to have, especially if you're going offshore, having a backup. I think that's, as we get further into these sports, there's going to be more safety options for us. The other thing is, kite knife. And I know some of I've got the Ozone. I know there's a spot for it. I need to go pick one up because not that like getting tangled up in your lines is that high of a risk, but I mean, it weighs nothing. It doesn't change anything about how I use that stash belt. Like, why would I not just throw one in there?
I mean, in the ocean, you could get tangled in ropes, fishing line, fishing like nets. Like there's a bunch of different things you could use that knife for, your lines and your parawing, whatever.
Just ending it all when you're having a bad session. You never know.
Yeah. It's just like,
I
screw
quit.
this paraway.
Anyways.
And then helmets, bump caps.
Let's talk bump cap real quick. I think bump cap is an easy one that, we should all probably be doing. And I know you and I haven't been using them as much. We had a phase there where we were both wearing bump caps all the time. A bump cap, it's just a piece of industrial safety equipment. Basically, it's a thin cap that slides inside a standard baseball cap. So you've got, a couple mils of a hard plastic with maybe a little bit of a thin foam liner, which is giving you not really a lot of cushion on impact, but what it does is it keeps you from getting cut. And having like a direct laceration from something sharp, and obviously takes a little bit of the heat out of any kind of impact by spreading the load. So not in any way going to help you from like what the crash impact, but at least it keeps you, your dome safe from getting cut, which, I got cut on the head this last winter. And if I'd been wearing a bump cap, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. So I think at a minimal, a bump cap. If not, then you've got helmets out there. You've got soft shell helmets. You've got hard helmets. You've got full helmets that people are using for big air kite surfing. You're muted for some reason. Walt Dickinson, recording has stopped. Let's talk about safety during a podcast. Make sure you put your phone on silent. And
yeah, I'll put them on airplane mode next time. It connects to my iPad and then it boots me out, and then I have to like re-enter the studio. Do you want to wrap this up?
Yep, we're wrapping it up.
What were we just saying?
Oh, I was saying that safety for podcasting is to put your phone on airplane mode so you don't receive calls and get booted off the call.
That's not what we were talking about. We were talking about kite knives.
Helmets.
Oh, helmets. I was going to say the soft helmets are also really cool, and I haven't used them much, but obviously it doesn't really impede your experience that much. Yeah. They look a little goofy, but whatever.
Yeah. Mystic makes
Safety
a great
first.
One. They're coming out with a hard shelled one that it's like, kind of like the Gath, but a little bit more sleek, a little bit more fitting. Monera has one of those soft when you hit it hard for impact helmets as well, with like earpieces. But so there's probably a bunch of different ones out there. And then there's the Commune that have this hat with the Velcro on the front with the helmet, cushioning it. So there are options for the surfers out there. I think you should put a comprehensive list together of like everything we talked about so folks can kind of look and pick and choose. Because I think at the end of the day, look, safety is your journey. It's a personal journey you have with your sport, and it's all relative to your comfort and experience. And I think when we're making conscious decisions around our safety, that's fine. When I'm choosing to go out and I'm completely aware of all the risks, and I'm saying, I'm going out without these pieces of safety equipment, fully knowing the risk and being ready to be accountable for that risk, fine. But I think a lot of times we just get comfortable and we're frothing, like right now, wind's blowing, crew's out, I'm ready to go send it. I just want to get out there and go. And I think it's about recognizing each day for what it brings, the conditions you have, and recognizing that like you don't have to have the same protocol all the time either, right? Like there may be a point where like in my safety journey, sure, on a light day, I don't feel like I need all of those safety protocols, but when it's macking out and things are serious, and again, like the guy who unfortunately passed away in the river, like that wouldn't have happened on a nice 20-mile-an-hour day, right? Those conditions were serious, and so I should take them seriously. And I think that's something we can all kind of recognize, and whether you're building out a new safety protocol for yourself and doing it from top to bottom, but the more we all kind of adapt to safety culture, the more it'll permeate the wind sports scene, right, and the surf scene, and we'll all be more comfortable wearing helmets and doing things that are better for us long term and allow us to really enjoy these sports for the long haul. Well said, buddy. Thank you so much.
Safety third.
Safety third. Tourniquet, vest, helmet, knife for your lines, a good leash,
bright ugly shirt.
Bright ugly shirt. I think we drilled it into the people.
I completely agree. The world is a safer place now, Dylan, thanks to this podcast.
You're welcome, everybody. And thank you for enjoying the X-Foils podcast. I'm your host, Dylan, and our unofficial co-host, Walt Dickinson over here. We'll see you guys next time.